Hey, y'all, thanks again for listening to Drew Tessier's Mostly Queer Comedy Podcast. Remember to subscribe, rate, and review. You can follow me at Drew Tessier NYC. And if you want to see it live, you can watch this on YouTube.
It's Drew Tessier's Mostly Queer Comedy Show. Let's talk, y'all.
Hey, y'all, welcome to another episode of Drew Tessier's Mostly Queer Comedy Podcast, where I interview the most exciting queer comedians in this country. I am so excited for today's guest. I know I say that every week, but this week, I really, really mean it. This one is so funny. I got to see her one-woman show last night, Black of All Trades at Caveat here in New York. Got my Rita Brent fan. I got my Rita Brent t-shirt. Y'all, it is... You have to see her perform to really understand how incredibly talented she is, and the way that you incorporate the music and the comedy. And what I really love about your style is it is so effortlessly seeming and so it's kind of funny, and then bam with the truth. And it is so the way that you can work that into your material so well, with it still feeling kind of light and fun, and the audience is with you, and it was great, tons of black people, tons of gay people, all mixed in together, which was really great. You are from Mississippi, correct?
Yes, Jackson, Mississippi.
And born and raised?
Yeah, born and raised.
And now, I've always wondered this, because I met you a couple years ago. You thought about doing New York for a hot second, came up here
I was
right
here
before
for a year.
And then, was it really that long?
Yeah, and then the pandemic hit, and it was a challenge.
And then you went back home.
Went to Atlanta for 2 years, and then now I'm back in Mississippi for now.
And you've run a really successful career from Mississippi. It's very inspiring. It makes me want to move back home, frankly.
What's home for you?
Well, Alabama.
Oh, okay.
But I've been in New York now for 20 years. But, I admire you for staying down there. I think it's very inspiring. I would never go back, but I think it's great that you've managed to kind of hold on to that hold. Now, I've always wondered, your mother's kind of high profile in Mississippi, right?
She might not agree, but she is a minister.
Okay,
of
minister.
music.
I always wondered. Okay.
Yeah, so if you're in any kind of black church setting and you mention my mom or show a picture, people will know who she is.
Right.
She's a very talented singer and musician.
And gorgeous.
Yeah, and gorgeous. Yeah, so that helps a lot. And now, she's also Rita B's mom, so that gets her a lot of attention lately.
I love that. And then you do Honda commercials back home as well, right?
Yeah, I do. I've been doing that since 2018. Wow, saying that out loud, I didn't realize it had been that long. So 6 years I've been doing car commercials, and that has really diversified my audience. Like, older people, young children, they see me on television, and they are just so excited. And I think I'm the most excited that my grandmother gets to see me on television every week, because she grew up during segregation, and there was a point in time when, black people were not allowed in certain spaces. So now she can turn on her TV every day and see her grandbaby, and I think it makes her sacrifices seem worth it.
That's, again, just tremendous to me. I mean, if there was one place I would like to be gay less than Alabama, I think it would be Mississippi. I mean, and again, your audience, I think probably because of your mother and your roots and everything, you do have a big Christian following of your comedy as well. And I even wondered, having not seen you, again, I met you when you had come to New York. I think we were doing the Queer Comedy Festival, and you'd come to one of the parties that we were having, and you did a couple of my shows while you were here. Shit, I lost my train of thought. I did more drinking last night after your show than I intended to do. I met you when you had come up here. You were living in New York, and having not been in the same room with you for a while, I was curious how much of your material at this show you would still own being queer. And I loved that even before the show even started, you had, I think one of the monikers you used was former heterosexual or something. And you were married to a man for a while, right?
I was, for a couple years. And I think a lot of that had to. Well, of course, I loved him. We met in the military, and it was just a love story. And it was like, that one time at band camp that really happened. Okay, but also there was a religious aspect to it in my mind, and I speak about this like I thought, well, God has sent this man to save me from my sins.
Wow.
This is the guy that's gonna get me to heaven, and I actually loved him, and I lost my virginity to him, so I was like, well, I gotta marry him, and then what happened was I just wasn't able to sustain in that role because that's not who I really am. I am a masculine woman, so imagine me being with a man, and I'm trying to do feminine stuff, and I'm like, it's just not authentic, He come home, I'm mowing the lawn, and he's like, what you ain't supposed to be mowing, you supposed to be cooking, so, but he has since gotten remarried, and hopefully, forgiving me for, I wouldn't say I misled him because I was honest.
Sure.
I told him that I was interested in women. I just didn't tell him it had been for my whole life.
Right.
He was more of the experiment than women.
Well,
But
you said in the show last night that you had actually come out to your mother once younger.
I did. And when I was 16 years old, that's probably the first time that I felt those feelings.
Yeah.
And we were literally about to go in church, and I thought, well, this would be a good time to tell her. So I said, hey, Mama, I like girls. She was like, what? And I remember what she said. It was something like, well, I'm not sure I condone it, but I'm not going to treat you any differently. And then since then, our relationship has just grown and grown and grown. But I did know that she secretly, wanted me to be married to a man because it was just easier to avoid the condemnation from people in the church, because she's still in the church. She still plays piano for 2 churches. And I think it was just a lot of worry about, well, what are people going to say? Right. And when I came out on stage in 2019, I did not tell her I was going to do it, but I did it. And even then, she and I had to work through that. Because she's like, well, why didn't you tell me? And, now people... And I'm like, but Mom, it's my story. It's not your story. And so once we got to that point, everything's been fine.
Yeah, again, the needle that you are able to thread with your material is just incredible to me. And the show, like I said, the show is so good. And last night was a recording. Mm-hmm. Do we know yet sort of a rough date or where it's going? Is it going to be a YouTube?
Well, I'm going to just let my agents and managers decide what they want to do with it, if anything. I think above all, we want to pitch it to people. Mm-hmm. So we wanted to get what I do on camera, which is essentially a variety show. It's not just stand-up. And I can say it, but then you see it and you're like, oh, okay, this is different. So I'm just going to let them, they have the raw footage, and I'll let them have at it. And hopefully somebody will bite.
So it's Rita on stage. She also has a drum set, and you'd mentioned briefly. I knew that you had been in the military before. Mm-hmm. I did not actually know until last night that it was that you had been in the military band.
Yes,
which made me laugh because my father's was active duty Army, as well as my grandfather and my brother. Mm-hmm. And there was a period when I was younger. Now, it was Don't Ask, Don't Tell. So I certainly was not out to him in any sort of way, but a period that he had sort of pushed this idea of, well, you could do your singy dancy stuff in the military. There's a full. So that made me laugh that in a while, 10 years, you said, or how long were you in?
I was in for 9 years.
9 years. Wow.
I joined at 18. And that's literally the only thing I could have done in the Army. My family was opposed to anything else. So I never got deployed. And I played music my entire tenure. And we had a rock band, a second line band, jazz band. And that's literally what we do. We provide musical support, which is therapeutic for the troops.
Yeah.
So some active band, they will actually go overseas just to provide support for the troops.
That's so awesome.
Yeah. And it's good money, too. I keep telling young musicians.
Again, when I was coming, not that I could have, because it was sort of peak Don't Ask, Don't Tell when I would have been of the right age. But I always wonder, if I would have done either 20 years in the military or 20 years teaching and then retired and had, sort of the benefits, I would be basically at the same place I'm at now, because I started comedy later. I was like 38 by the time I kind of really did full tilt comedy anyway. Mm-hmm.
And I was in during Don't Ask, Don't Tell too, and so I couldn't tell.
So you didn't tell?
Yeah, but when I was in basic training, these girls came to formation holding hands, and the next day they were gone.
Wow.
It was literally that serious. You cannot say you're gay. Like, some girls were trying to flirt with me. I'm like, hey, y'all can get sent home. I'm not getting sent home. All right, we can do gay shit later. After we graduated from basic training. Let's graduate first, okay? Thank you.
You've also been doing a lot of writing in the last couple of years. So, I mean, I know you've had 3 nominees for, what award was it?
Writers Guild.
Writers Guild. Even the CMAs, right?
ACMs, which is, kind of the same thing. So it's the
Okay.
Academy of Country Music Awards. And I just have to shout out Cedric the Entertainer.
Yeah.
He gave me my first writing gig through the Emmys when he was hosting. I had been doing stand-up with him for a very brief time. And I got the call and said, hey, we want to hire you to write for us. I was like, for what? Right for what?
Right.
And he said, the Emmys. I was like, do you know who you called?
It's amazing.
And then it's just been a domino effect
Yeah.
in the best way. John Max is just an amazing, he is a legendary writer. So he got me on the ACMs. I've been writing for the Mark Twain Prize for the past 3 years. Mark Twain 1 year, but Music Cares for the Grammys the past 3 years. So this year we had Jim Gaffigan hosting. We honored Bon Jovi. The year before it was Berry Gordy. The year before it was Joni Mitchell. And it's just interesting to be on that side of things.
And I guess, for some of those, a lot of research would have to go into it for the people that you're, yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't familiar with Joni Mitchell, and I'm ashamed to say that as a musician, but
Right.
when I'm doing this writing, I have to write their bios and all of the segues in between for the people speaking, and it's just wonderful because I'm a musician, and that doesn't require any comedy. The Grammys Music Cares is not a comedic thing. It's just honoring the folks who have been doing great things in music, and so it's great to switch back and forth from comedy to serious to let them know I can do both.
Any shows coming up that you're going to be writing for, in the...
Not right now. I am trying my best to get on Saturday Night Live as a performer. They have writing submissions open too, but I really don't want to write. I want to perform. So I am going to speak into existence what I want to do.
I love that.
Yeah.
And they could certainly use more...
Yeah. That part.
I'm trying to think how many... Bowen Yang's openly gay. I think they've got...
That might be it.
Yeah, maybe 1 or 2 black female cast members right now. But do you know Vanessa Jackson?
Vanessa
She's
Jackson,
a
I
writer
don't.
for SNL.
Okay. Is Sam J still writing for SNL? She was at some point.
I don't know if Sam J is or not. Also, Alex English, who came up, he's from Detroit, but came through sort of the queer comedy scene here in New York, has been writing. But Vanessa is very regular at our club and very funny.
Okay.
I need to get her on the show. She was I just did for Juneteenth, we did an all-black queer lineup for my Wednesday show, and she was the ally of the week for
that's
that
beautiful.
one. Yeah, it was great. It was fun. It was really funny. The show was great. The audience was great. Everything was great. But what was most funny, I think, was the comics just being like, God, we're not all in the same room ever. Just
yeah.
kidding.
Right.
So it was almost. I think it was almost more fun in the kitchen, that show, than the show itself.
I tell people the real show is backstage. Seriously.
How did you meet Cedric the Entertainer?
So it's funny, I just texted this guy today. His name is Chanel. He does this thing called a pop-up comedy series that he brings to Mississippi. One of the best restaurants in Mississippi is called Johnny T's. And Chanel saw me performing at Johnny T's, and he said, well, I want to introduce you to Cedric the Entertainer. I was like, well, how you know Ced? And he's like, well, I book him for some stuff. So Cedric and I met in Killeen, Texas, which is a military town. And that was 2019, I think. Yeah. And ever since then, I've been on tour with Ced.
God, that's huge.
Yeah.
Where's
the
he
freaking
from?
king of comedy. It feels surreal. He's from St. Louis.
Okay.
Very proud.
I love that.
However you think he is, like chill and like this king attitude, it's real. Yeah, like he's that guy. He's that dude.
And I love to to hear that he wants to help up and comers as well into the which to call you an up and comer, you're huge now.
Thank you. Mississippi is just a highly patriotic state, so there's a lot of love and support there and reverence, because they are just really gung ho about things like that. But it's just the thought that I can do what I do and what I've done in Mississippi, just exist as an underdog essentially. And then next thing you know, I'm standing next to Gabrielle Union and the Star Trek man and what's the dude, Professor X from X. And because I was on teleprompter for the Emmys, so everybody who had to say something on stage, they had to come to me first to practice.
Wow.
And I had in my head like what I was gonna say, depending on who walked up, So like an Angela Bassett was right next to me, and I was just like, how's like, just dumb shit. I didn't know what to say, But she's my soror, and your mind just goes blank when you get next to people. Taraji P Henson. Now, oddly enough, the person I get mistaken for the most is Samira Wiley. Samira Wiley, okay? In the middle of the Emmys, she just walked up to me and was like, I like your suit. You fly as hell. And I was like, people think I'm you, girl. So it was just great to meet her. But it's always an honor to say I'm from Mississippi. For some people, that would be a point of shame. But it's not for me because it's like, well, I'm making it out.
Yeah.
And I'm not denying or being ashamed of where I'm from. And I'm the example that you can be from somewhere like Mississippi and still thrive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's not to your detriment. It doesn't have to be.
And queer, and black, and Christian, and former military. I mean, the amount of code switching that you must have to do on, 3 times within a sentence, I would think.
Mm-hmm.
Do you get any type of pushback from your sort of gospel Christian following with?
Oh yeah, on social media especially, and nobody's bold enough to do it to my face, but social media is always folks in the comments, because I do a lot of satirical Christian stuff, a lot of parody songs, and somebody's always talking about me, going to hell or whatever. I'm like, well, if I do go, it's gonna be lit, the performances are gonna be great. But I get the pushback, but I am all of the mindset of just shedding dead skin, So if somebody is deciding to not support me because of my sexual orientation, well, I really don't want your support.
Right.
So it doesn't bother me. But I also think that I have kind of pushed people's beliefs and their humanity because I'm forcing them to look at my heart. It's like, well, what does it matter?
Right.
What I do sexually? Like, what about my heart? What about who I am as a human? And I think I have really pushed some people's boundaries with that, including my mother's.
Yeah, I would imagine you would have to. What scenes do you play? Are you in Atlanta a lot? Are you in Nashville? Or you're just all over now?
Wherever Cedric tells me to go.
Wow.
I also perform a lot with Ricky Smiley. And Ricky does a lot on the East Coast, and we have some stuff coming up in Florida. I would have been in New York with Cedric this week, but I had my own thing to do. But wherever they're going, and for me personally, I just do like a lot of random stuff. I don't really like the West Coast because I have flight anxiety.
Right.
I'm trying to get over that, so I prefer to be on the East Coast. And wherever they're paying, I'm going.
Now you're up here. You're in New York right now for part of the Black Women in Comedy Festival.
Yes.
And this is you said the second or third time you've done this?
Yeah, this is my second year participating. I think this is the 5-year anniversary of the festival.
And your show, Black of All Trades, was sort of part of the festival going on.
Yes.
And so the show last night, Mooney hosted, and she's a fabulous host. I've actually never seen her. I'm like, I talked to her last night. I was like, I'm going to book you tomorrow too. I mean, she's great. JJ and Matisse, who of course I know. But who was the third comic? 62-year-old woman, works for NASA. She's based out of South Carolina. Is that right? Man, she was funny.
Yeah, her name is Donna Lewis. So the year I did not perform in the festival was last year, I think. But I still came because I was here hosting something for the Moth. And I still came, and I saw Donna performing. And she was doing parody songs and just blowing the crowd away. And I'm like, who is this woman?
Yeah.
So I've only seen her perform one time, and I found out she's a part of my sorority as well. And I said, well, the next time I'm doing a show, I'm going to get Donna on the show. And it was just a different representation, 60 years old and just says whatever comes to mind. But she's a very good joke writer as well. Relatable, and so I had to have Donna on the show.
Yeah, literally. Do you know how has she been doing comedy a long time, or is she later? Okay, and literally, I mean, she makes a Hidden Figures joke herself, but I mean, literally works for NASA, and just really an incredible show from start to finish. You picked the perfect sort of lineup to introduce you last night. That was just a very, very perfect collection of different voices, and then just. I
was tickled because the night before she's like, well, I got this new joke because I got written up at work.
Right.
And I said, written up? And she said, yeah. And they would tell me I need to improve. She's like, I'm 63. What kind of improvement? I'm not about to improve. And she was like, I'm going to do this joke at the show. And I was like, do it. And it killed.
Yeah, no, it really did. I can't imagine anything coming out of her mouth that wouldn't be hilarious. Yeah. I mean, just such a sharp comic.
Indeed.
What venues are? I mean, I guess this festival's all over New York and Manhattan and Brooklyn. Or are they?
Yeah, primarily. But the host club is the Grizzly Pear,
Okay.
Midtown, and Uncle Nearest is the sponsor for the festival. But the two shows that I have left, the LGBT show that I'm headlining is at Grizzly Pear.
Cool.
And then Best of the Fest is on the last day, and so it's all the headliners and then a couple standout performers from the week.
I think. I wonder if Marcy Smiles is going to be on your show or not. So
I
she was
wonder.
the winner.
It's like 9 people on the LGBT show.
She won my queer comedy festival, not the current winner, but the one before that. And I know that she's doing the Black Women in Comedy Festival, so I'd be willing to bet she's going to be on that show. She is hilarious too. My favorite story about Marcy, which I need to get Marcy on the show, but when I first met her. Her parents showed up to the open mic a little bit before her, and just the sweetest little church people you've ever met in your entire life. And they said, "Is it okay if we watch?" I said, "Sure." I'm going to tell you, there's going to be some bad jokes.
Yeah, little raunchy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and she's like, "No, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine." But we just want to watch. And I was like, "All right, sure, absolutely." And then Marcy got there. It was the first time I met her, and she introduced herself, and she went up on stage. And she did the filthiest set I've ever heard in my entire life. And I had no idea that they were her parents that had come.
Oh, my goodness.
And she's a very, very young-looking 50. But
Okay.
so she got into comedy late
That's
as
a
well.
blessing to have your parents and family. I mean, my folks came in from Mississippi for my show. And the very first time I did comedy, my mother was in a church suit. Like, she left church and came to my comedy show in a club the very first time. I'm telling you, like, she looked like Shirley Caesar, sitting up there, and she's like, "Well, this is my baby." And I just never have to ask. She does my makeup, and she doesn't judge the material. Every once in a while, she's like, "Don't do that one." Like, she's like, "Don't say the N word on Juneteenth." Don't say that. And my grandmother's is just a completely different story. One day, she was like, "Okay, Rita, don't say the P word on stage." And I was like, "Oh, I thought she was talking about this."
Yeah.
She was talking about piss.
Huh.
Yeah, she thought piss
Everybody's got their one that they just
Yeah.
don't want to hear.
Don't
And
say
you always
that.
say cat whenever you talk about pussy, which made me laugh last night.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I don't
try to
know
lighten
that
up
I've
a
ever
little
heard
bit.
you say the other P word on stage.
No, I don't think I have a reason to, because I mean, as a female comedian, they are waiting to call you raunchy,
Right.
or to treat you, in a manner, just discard you. Oh, well, she's too vulgar now. Man could talk about the same things. But
Absolutely.
when it's coming out of a woman's mouth, for some reason, it's judged differently. So I don't want to give people a reason to discount me. So if I can say an alternate word, I'll say cat instead of the other one.
I always think I've assumed, because I run 8 open mics in New York every week, and I've always felt, now my mics are very mixed, lots of women, lots of queer people, and then, the bros, if they want to come in, if they can hang in that room, then absolutely, but it's, it's not going to be back-to-back rape jokes, for 2 hours.
Okay.
But I always think it's got to be hard for women when they're first starting in the open mic scene, especially when they're one of one or one of two in a room with all young straight dudes, telling the same punchlines over and over again, when they're trying to make that demographic laugh.
Yeah.
Which is not going to be indicative of what they actually need to be, achieving for audiences that they're going to be in front of. But I always think that's got to be such a challenge to try to get a laugh in a room full of dudes that don't want to laugh at you, and then that's going to sort of skew your comedy. And I think, like you said, so many young women do sort of go raunchy, because I think that's what they think guys want to hear in those type of rooms.
I mean, in some situations, it might be an act of rebellion. It's like, if y'all can be raunchy and say things, well, I can be vulgar too.
Sure.
So it could be an act of rebellion, but, just my comedy, my choice.
Now, you mentioned the music, and you do some parody stuff, which is very funny, but you also do some not fucking around.
Yeah.
I mean, your rap is incredible.
Thank you.
The Race in the Sip, I think, is a great song.
Thank you.
Did that get any type of sort of airplay down in Mississippi at all?
It's like it's like a handful of people are just like, when I see them, they're like, now that's my favorite song. It's always that. Even some people are like, now that Quarantine Shuffle, that's the one. That one should have went. And I'm realizing that with music, like everybody has their favorites. But like I talk with my family, some songs and some people, they're just not going to catch up until later.
Right.
But that's a good thing about music. It is timeless. And it is evergreen, so the lyrics in Raising the Sip, the lyrics in I Deserve to Be Alive, the lyrics in Bad Mother, they will be just as effective 20 years from now. So I'm just waiting on the world to catch up.
Yeah, we did during COVID. I guess you had probably already. Well, you had moved back home after leaving New York. We were doing this YouTube show that nobody will ever watch, hopefully. But basically, I was just reaching out to queer comedians and saying, "What do you have?" And we opened one of the episodes of the show with the Quarantine Shuffle, which is such an interesting timestamp of a moment in time with the Lysol and the. But no, again, it's.
But also, like the Mississippi Health Department, people were reaching out to me like, we really need people to abide by the guidelines. Can you say something in a way that will be receivable? And that was how. Like, just put it in music. It's easy. Yeah, because I'm like, oh, if you're standing in the house, say, wash your hands and all that. Giving people instructions. If you put it in a line dance, it'll work.
How often do you record albums, or do you do sort of music, just one-off songs, or?
Yeah, so the way my bank account is set up right now, we're doing one-off songs. Many, many, many people are requesting an album, but the problem is I don't know which direction to go. Because I can do most genres. So it's like, well, do I stick to one genre? Is it a multi-genre album? I haven't quite figured that out, because I have about 5, 6, 7 Southern Soul songs in the vault. Of course, I have rap in the vault. So I'm just in the creative process of figuring out how I want it to feel. So I'm not going to rush it.
And you do completely clean shows in churches sometimes too, right?
Oh, yeah. I thought they would end when I came out of the closet, but I guess funny is funny. And a lot of people, for some reason, cannot work clean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to do a show. It's funny you say that. I have to do a show tomorrow for Central Pennsylvania Pride, and they want it to be both gay and family friendly. And man, I have been beating my head against the bridge.
Well, good thing there's AI. You can ask ChatGPT how. Help me. Use some inspiration.
You heard it here first. The people writing for the Emmys are using ChatGPT.
Thankfully, it wasn't around. We should do a comparison, like writing pre and post. This AI surgeons, I would be curious to know, like, if you see a difference in the writing for shows.
I haven't.
I don't know how to
given
use it.
into that. I don't even know how to find ChatGPT yet.
Yeah,
but.
I don't want to use it. I even turned off my predictive text because I was forgetting how to spell.
Yeah,
and I would type 2 letters, and then I'm like, and I don't want to dumb myself down, so I turned it off.
Well, I'm super dyslexic. I can't spell at all, so I talk all of my text for that very reason. And
I've started to do that too.
Yeah,
just tired of doing this all day.
So you've got the show. We don't know when that is going to be released yet, but stay tuned. Look for it. Check out her music. When did stand-up comedy begin for you?
Ooh, 2013. I was doing. It was something like an open mic. It was a show in Mississippi, this place called Sweet 106. And the first time I went to the venue, I was just in the audience and I saw comedians and I was like, oh, it's comedy in Jackson because Mississippi is known for music. And while I was watching the other comedians, all of a sudden the hair started to stand up on my arms and I was like, huh. And if you go back and look at my Facebook memories, I was always talking about wanting to do stand up, but didn't think that I could do it in Mississippi. So I hit this guy up over the show and I said, hey man, I think I want to do, take a chance. And he gave me 5 minutes and I did well. Like I said, my mom came in her church attire and I think I got $25 for 5 minutes. And I said, wait a minute.
Paid for your very first time ever? Oh my God, unheard of.
This is going to add up one day. But it just felt empowering, you know, and because I'm a journalism, mass communication major, that's what my degree is in, I write. And I started writing then, and I just been writing ever since. And I was like, oh, okay, well, in order to be a comedian, you have to be a writer. And I love writing. And so I figured it was something I could do. And here we are 10 and a half years later, and we're having fun, as Dusty Slade would say. We're having a good time.
If we look like we are glistening, it is a heat wave in New York right now. I feel like you guys brought Mississippi weather with you here to New York.
I'm sorry.
Check out her music. Check out her comedy. Check out her Twitter feed. I mean, she's one of the funniest people I've ever seen. And just like I said, the way that you were so on the right track, the way that you were figuring out how to incorporate the music, and I think you're, like you said it yourself, you're a variety performer. And
But it's hard to like own up to that. It's hard to walk in that because people really do want to put you in a box. You know, they really want to just make you a stand-up, or they really just want to make you a musician. I'm always thinking about Jamie Foxx. I feel like I'm the female Jamie Foxx, so that's what I aim to be. Or Childish Gambino. Two completely different people. You know, you got Childish Gambino, and then you have Donald Glover, and he's able to navigate those very well. Actor, comedian, musician. And so I want to follow those footsteps, you know, and just walk in whichever one, you know, it just speaks to me most at the time.
do you ever do characters?
No, but I imagine I could.
Like, have you seen like Whoopi Goldberg's early like Broadway show that she did with all
that
of the...
that was the inspiration for this one.
Yeah.
You know, I saw her doing that, and like I said, because I am about to audition for Saturday Night Live or send in a tape, I'm gonna have to get into some character work.
Yeah.
And I totally think I could do it. It has to be unlocked.
You should do one of her characters from that show. It would actually be really awesome.
That's a good
to
idea. I could do the Valley Girl.
Yeah. Do you play Biloxi at all?
Yeah. I was in Biloxi with Ricky Smiley earlier at the Beau Rivage Casino, which is the premier venue. So, yeah, yes to Biloxi.
Yeah.
And there's Ground Zero. That's one of Morgan Freeman's blues clubs that he has in Mississippi. The other's in Clarksdale. So I'm supposed to be at Ground Zero at some point. But yeah, the coast of Mississippi is probably the pride and joy.
Yeah, I mean, I could see you having your own show there. You know, that incorporated the music and the comedy and all of that.
That's a good idea. Yeah, I've been chatting with a guy about that. But you know, it's our beach, and it is very serene on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. Yeah, and it's very close to New Orleans too.
Yeah, I was just down in New Orleans for the New Orleans Queer Comedy Festival, which
shout out to Comedy House NOLA.
And Ryan
first
Rogers.
residency there.
You should definitely come to that festival.
Yeah.
I know I keep acting like I'm going to wrap this up, and then I ask her another question.
This is what black preachers do, so go ahead. I'm getting ready to close 30 minutes later.
Thank you so much for taking time to do this. Rita Brent, tell them your social media stuff.
My social media is at Rita Brent Comedy. That's RITABRENT Comedy. In Mississippi, we pronounce the R. RITABRENT Comedy. On Instagram, I'm probably the most active. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, TikTok. Am I missing anything? I'm not on Threads. So all those social media sites. And my website is ritabrent.com. And if you're interested in booking me, you can do that way.
Black of all trades.
Hey.
Check out her special. Thank you for tuning in. Please like and subscribe, y'all.
It's Drew Tessier's mostly queer comedy show.